3 men were sent from the central office. All 3 were tall and looked as young as Pharos. As Ramza guided them towards the 4 of them, the man in the middle greeted them.
I'm Salit, from the Information Control Bureau in the central office. These are Middle and Tegan, also from the Information Control Bureau.
The man said, introducing himself, then introduced the men on either side of him.
I have heard about the situation from the director. I would like to hear from you guys directly about it, is that okay?
Pharos and the others looked at each other once, then nodded. Since that was their intention from the beginning, there was no particular reason to refuse.
Thank you very much,
Salit said, and the other 2 bowed deeply. Then, Pharos and the others were led to another room. Ramza said he had work to do and stayed behind at the reception desk. After using the deminder to move around several times, Pharos and the others were taken to the library's administration room. It was a very spacious space with high ceilings and crustara installed on the wall. The crustara displays every room in the library. The ceiling was entirely made of glass, and many fish were swimming above it. Apparently, the room is located under the lake. Inside the room, many people were working silently. Pharos and the others were led to a conference room in the back. There was a large table in the center of the conference room, with many chairs arranged around it. The back of the room was made of glass, and beyond that there were fish swimming in the lake as well. However, when Salit pointed the testick at the window, it instantly turned into a white wall. Salit, Middle, and the others sat across the table from each other. Tegan was gone for a moment. It seemed this was the first time for both Claire and Ramal to come this place, as they looked around restlessly.
Here in the administration office, we mainly monitor the library, manage Crustone, and update the information,
said Salit, who was sitting in front of Pharos. Next to him, Middle nodded in agreement.
Let's get straight to the point,
Salit said, leaning forward and folding his hands on the table.
First of all, could you please tell us the details of the man dressed in black that you saw?
Claire answered Salit's question first. Well, he was about the same height like you, but his face was completely covered by a black hood so I couldn't see him very well. But his skin was pale and white. After hearing Claire's answer, Salit turned his gaze to Pharos for confirmation. Pharos nodded in agreement.
Were there any other characteristics you noticed?
Well, you see, he had an abnormally high nose and red eyes.
Pharos replied, remembering the face of the man whose eyes had met as they passed each other. Then, Salit looked at Middle. Middle nodded silently. Then Tegan arrived with a cruster in his hand. Salit thanked him and received, then operated it with his fingers. Then he stood the crustar on the table for all to see.
This is the record of your visit to the 1648th floor of Building 3312.
On the screen, the 4 of them, led by Claire, were shown descending onto the 1648th floor. When the 4 stood in front of the table showing the map of the rooms, Claire said, "Room 25 is. Here it is," and pointed the map with her testick. Seeing that, Claire exclaimed, "What? That's not it. Well, look, room 25 is marked as vacant. When we actually went there, it was marked red, meaning it was occupied." Indeed, on the image projected on the crustar, all the rooms, including the one Claire was pointing to with testick, were marked white, meaning vacant. "This way," Claire said in the video, and walked down the hallway to the right. The remaining 3 followed suit. Turning left at the 5th row, the 4 of them proceeded without incident to room 25 at the very back and entered through the open door. Then the cruster's video stopped. "What is this? It's completely different." Claire frowned and looked at Pharos.
How are they different?
Salit asked, pushing Crustar aside. "First of all, as I said earlier, When we went to floor 1648, room 25 was marked as in use. And then, oh yeah, Alondra said that maybe Grandpa Ramza was using it, right? Alondra nodded. So, we decided to go and check it out, and as we turned the corner to where room 25 was, the door to room 25 suddenly opened. And the man in the black suit came out. Then he walked past us and off somewhere. Then we just stood there for a bit and talked about who he was. Right? The three of them nodded in agreement with Claire's story. Anyway, it's completely different. Claire shook her head dramatically, and Alondra asked from beside her.
Is it possible to project the image from a different angle?
Salit nodded at Alondra's request.
We have checked from every angle, but we could not find the man you are talking about anywhere.
Salit said as he operated Crustone.
This is the footage from Claire's point of view.
Salit stood up the Crustone again so everyone could see. The same scene as before was shown on the screen of Crustone, but from Claire's point of view. It simply switched to Claire's point of view, but the content was the same as what they had seen earlier. Similarly, Salit showed images from the perspectives of Feroz, Alondra, and Ramal, but the content was the same in all cases.
Sorry, can I see that footage again?
Alondra said after seeing the footage from Ramal's point of view. Salit looked at Alondra for a moment, and nodded. The image was again shown to Crustone from Ramal's point of view.
Room 25 is, here it is.
Claire was shown on the video, pointing out the layout of the rooms between Feroz and Alondra.
This way.
The screen followed Claire down the hallway, with Feroz and Alondra following behind. Claire turned left, then Feroz and Alondra followed suit.
Stop right here,
Alondra said, just before the four of them reached room 25. After glancing back at Alondra, Salit quickly stopped the video. The screen was static with Claire waving her testick at the door of room 25.
Sorry, could you please rewind the video to a moment ago?
Yes.
Salit nodded, and rewound the video. The four of them were seen walking backwards on the screen.
Stop.
When the four of them got back to around a few steps into that line, Alondra said again.
Could you please show us the current scene again, this time slowly?
Salit nodded silently. The screen slowly showed the backs of the three people heading towards room 25.
Oh, Feroz just acted strangely,
Claire said, turning around, and Alondra nodded.
You're right. Feroz movements were a little unnatural just now.
Salit said, turning his face to Feroz. Feroz, unable to confirm it, tilted his head. So Salit then showed the same scene, this time at a slower rate. Feroz looked carefully at the image on the screen. Then, while moving, there was a moment when he glanced twice at the upper right. Salit turned the image back on and played the same scene again. Then the video was stopped with Feroz looking up at upper right.
Hey, isn't it around here that the man in black passed by?
Claire said, putting her hand on Feroz's shoulder.
Indeed, perhaps we had stopped around here and watched the man pass by.
After a moment, Salit showed the image from Feroz's point of view again. However, no matter how slowly the video was played, there was no scene in which the Feroz looked at upper right.
This is strange, isn't it?
As Claire said, crossing her arms proudly. Salit lowered his gaze.
It looks like one of the videos has been altered.
It's not just one of them. Mine and all the others have all been altered. All of the content is completely different from the facts.
Salit nodded and handed the Crustone to Tegan.
Please take this back to the bureau and have them reanalyze where and how it was altered.
Certainly.
After receiving the Crustone, Tegan bowed to Feroz and the others and left the place. So, said Alondra.
What is the central office's opinion of the man in black we saw?
Salit dropped his eyes, folding his hands on the table.
Of course you think he's from the dark forces, right?
Claire asked, and Salit tilted his head slightly.
At this point, we can't say anything yet. However, based on the characteristics of the man you saw, I have to say that there is a high possibility that he is a member of the dark forces.
That's for sure, because he had a very gloomy aura about him,
Claire said, and Salit nodded with an exaggeratedly serious look on his face.
However, it is truly hard to believe that a member of the dark forces could have slipped through our surveillance and infiltrated the TOs. Even more, they could have sneaked into the network and rewritten Crustone without us our eyes. If that were to be true, it would be extremely dangerous. Therefore, we would like to believe that the man you saw is not a member of the dark forces.
That being said, it is a fact that Crustone was rewritten without the surveillance of you in the central government. Whether that was the work of people from the dark world or not,
Claire said, and Salit turned his gaze towards Pharos. Then he lowered his gaze again with his head down.
You don't think we're lying, do you? There's nothing to gain from lying. There's no way we'd lie about something like this.
No, of course we don't think that way,
Salit said, waving his hands.
However, we cannot simply accept your opinions at face value. Of course, we will take them into consideration,
Salit said, looking into Claire's eyes.
What's that? Doesn't that mean you can't trust us?
Claire retorted. Salit shook his head and said, no, it doesn't.
Maybe we should check out our Crustone?
Elandra suggested. Then Salit shook his head again.
Of course, we have also investigated all of your Crustones. However, if the information you witnessed is correct, it seems that your Crustones have already been rewritten.
What do you mean?
Claire asked.
In other words, the information about Crustone when you all came to the 1648th floor of Building 3312. It's exactly the same as what I showed you earlier in Crustone.
What's that? So, does that mean our information has already been rewritten without us even noticing? Ah, that's creepy.
Saying that, Claire put both hands on her cheeks.
I don't know if they're dark forces or whatever, but what exactly is their purpose?
Pharos didn't understand why he had to get involved in such a situation. Salit tilted his head.
We don't know that either. It's not that we doubt you, but if someone has rewritten the information on Crustone or Crustone, unless we can first identify who did it, we obviously won't know their purpose, but...
Salit swallowed the words he was about to say.
But what?
Claire asked. Salit shook his head and said,
everything I can tell you right now is just speculation.
Can you tell us if it's speculation or not?
Pharos asked, and Salit gazed back into Pharos' eyes and then said as if letting out the breath he had been holding.
Well, I heard you came here looking for a dragon stone. A black dragon stone, actually.
Pharos nodded.
You may not know this, but a single black dragon stone containing the energy of the legendary dragon called Super Dragon is not very effective. It's only when 5 are gathered together that it can unleash its immense power.
Immense power?
Yes, if used correctly, it can increase the vibration rate of a single star and promote dimensional ascension. However, if used incorrectly, it has the power to reduce a single star to nothing.
Reducing to nothing means destroying it?
Salit nodded vigorously in response to Claire's question.
Before that, what was the dimensional ascension?
Pharos asked.
Each star has a consciousness, just like us. Just as we grow through this life, each star goes through stages of evolution to achieve its growth. Just as our souls grow and eventually return to infinite beings, stars also evolve and return to the energy of light. Ascension means moving from that evolutionary stage to the next multi-dimension.
Returning to the energy of light means disappearing, right? Isn't that the same as returning to nothingness?
Salit shook his head in response to Pharos' opinion and said, not at all.
One is sublimation, the other is annihilation.
Salit continued as Pharos pondered the difference in their meanings.
Going back to the main topic, dragon stones contain the life energy of a dragon. And the properties of each stone change depending on the characteristics of the dragon. Some increase magical power, some increase healing abilities, some increase flying ability, and some, like the one you have now, will guide you to your destination. In that way, usually just one will support that ability. However, as I said earlier, a single black dragon stone is not very useful. However, when 5 are gathered together, they unleash tremendous power, so the stone is also known as the stone that controls power. Because of this, it seems that people mistakenly believe that it has the ability to absorb the power of others and increase their own power. But in reality it has no such effect.
When Salite had said that much, Claire asked,
"So, does that mean Ibiza is mistaken as well?"
Salite shook his head in response to the question. Then there was a moment of silence.
"If so, what does that mean?"
Claire, who had grown impatient with Salite's silence, asked in an irritated manner. Salite turned to look at Middle once to confirm. Then, as if determined, he began to speak. "I just heard the whole story from the director.
Ibiza may be mistaken, but before that, there is no such person as Altacia whom Ibiza wants revenge on in the first place."
"No way,"
Claire exclaimed in surprise. Everyone there couldn't believe their ears.